Hey, like we talked about in video number 1, it's really important that we keep our core body temperature warm. So what happens if we're getting cold and we get to shaking and we can't warm up? One of the best ways to conquer that is to build a fire. So we're going to build a fire, but before we do that, I want to show you something that's different about this friend of mine's backyard than where we were before. So right here, we're next to a cabin, but if we walk right over here, the background looks really different, doesn't it? Instead of there being a lot of houses, we now have a lot of trees. That's going to help us be able to find some firewood and the things that you need to make a fire. But you can find some of these things in your neighborhood too, and I'll show you how to do that. The important thing we got to remember is you should never build a fire unless adults are aware that you're doing it and they're okay. Matter of fact, they'll probably be very good at helping you to build a fire. So with that said, let's talk about how this sun is going to help us out a little bit, and then we'll go build a fire together. Have you ever been to somebody's house and they had a porch like this, where when you sit down and you play and you talk and you have fun, it's really cool? Well, the reason for that is because this shades us from the sun. So think about it. Let's say that we're in a survival situation and we want to get warm. Do we want to be on a nice, cool porch? Or should we, for example, get out in the sun? Because the sun is so warm, one of the things that it is very good at is warming you up and me up. So just by getting out in the sunlight, it's really good for me if I need to warm up. And the opposite is also true. If I'm really hot and I don't want to be hot, then I want to do what I can to go somewhere in the shade where I can get cooled off and my body temperature can start to lower. But what happens if we're in a wintertime situation and we need to build a fire to be able to warm us up? What we're going to do next is exactly that. I'm going to go out and I'm going to show you how to find some things for fire building here in a forest. I'm also going to show you some things that you can find at your house. All right, so everybody has a hand, don't they? Let's talk about how we're going to use our hand to get the right stuff to build a fire. So we need to get things of certain sizes, and we need to get groups of them about, I don't know, about the size of your head. So think about the fingernail. Go ahead and look at your fingernail on your hand and think about how thick that is. Not the whole finger, just the fingernail. The first bunch of stuff that we need to get to build a fire needs to be about that thickness. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out in the woods and find some stuff that looks like that. I'll also show you some stuff that you can get from your house like that as well. Next, we want to get stuff about the thickness of sticks or something like that is about the thickness of your finger, your pinky finger, your little finger. Then we're going to get some stuff about the size of our thumb, and then we're going to get stuff about half the size or the size of your wrist. So again, we're going to take a look at stuff about the thickness of your fingernail, about the size of your pinky finger, about the size of your thumb, and then stuff about the size of your wrist. So walk with me and let's go find that. First thing we need to make sure we do is we get sticks that are up in the air. See how this stick is off the ground? It's not laying directly on the ground. This is a stick that I will use. Now, take a look at this stick where it's laying down on the ground. As a matter of fact, part of it's underneath the leaves and everything. This is not a stick that's going to make really good firewood. Anything that lays on the ground like these leaves or sticks like this, just because it's rained in the past or because there's fog in the morning or any number of things that get the ground wet, stuff that lays directly on the ground is never a good choice for firewood. So what I want to do is find sticks again that are stuck up in the air. Now we don't want to hurt live trees because live trees are not going to be very good for firewood either. So let me show you the difference between finding a stick on a tree that's dead and finding a stick on a tree that's alive. So I'm keeping the stick I already found. Now I want to look for another one. See, this is a tree. First thing I look at is see how it's got this big bud on it. This is going to be a leaf real soon. What I can also do is grab the branch and bend it a little bit and see if it breaks. Well, this one bends. That is not going to be a good piece of wood for firewood. Let me go find one that's dead and you'll see the difference. See on this branch, I don't see that bud. And when I grab the branch to bend it, I hear that snap and it breaks apart. That's the kind of branch that is a dead branch and can be good for firewood. Anything green, when it bends, is not good, but when it breaks like that, that's really good firewood. So we're already getting some. This one, look, that's about the size of my thumb as far as thick. These are really small, really tiny, about the thickness of maybe a pinky finger or my fingernail. Let's get a little bit more and I'll show you how to get it ready to go. Hey, and there's one that's about the size of my wrist. And again, this one's hanging up, so it makes for a good firewood. And again, it breaks. It doesn't bend. If it bends, it's not going to be good firewood, but this breaks apart. So this is really good stuff. So you can just look around your yard or your neighborhood where there's some sticks that have fallen down. Maybe they're standing up against the tree. Sometimes you can look up, look right here. I just now noticed this. You can look up and find branches that are hung up in the tree. They're going to be good and dead and dried branches, and pick those up so they don't have to fall in the yard. Once you gather a bunch of this stuff up, we're going to go and get it ready to start the fire. So follow me now. All right, now that we got a little wood to get started, let's talk about a couple of things. The first thing I talked about was get stuff about the thickness of your fingernail. But what if you don't have woods and getting stuff like I just did? Well, you probably get what a lot of people call junk mail at your house. Just ask whoever it is that you live with. You're going to have all kinds of paper like this that usually gets thrown in the garbage, and you could utilize it to start a fire. You don't want to use the stuff that's real slick and shiny. You just want to use the stuff that looks like it's made out of paper. That's going to be really good stuff for fire building. Here's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to take this and tear it up into little bitty pieces, sometimes long, thin pieces. And I want to start to build that pile of stuff about as big around as your face. So we're getting pretty close to having a pile, again, about as big around as my head. So I just keep tearing up my paper till I get that. That's really close. I've got little pieces like this. I've got some longer pieces like that. So we have a really good pile of what's called tinder. Tinder is the stuff about the thickness of your fingernail. So paper is really good for that. Now let me show you how to do it with the sticks. Now we can use our hands as tools. So what I want to do is start getting the little sticks and breaking them up and creating another pile right next to my paper thin stuff. That way I've got the next pieces of the fire building puzzle. Really easy to do. And again, whenever I'm breaking sticks, I want to make sure that when I break them, they snap and they come completely apart. Sometimes you'll break a stick and it doesn't make a snap and it's like you're trying to twist it and it won't come apart. That's a stick that's still green and you don't want to use that for fire building. So now we got another nice pile. And these are the ones that are about the size of my pinky finger, remember? So over here, this is the stuff that's about as thick as my fingernail. Over here, I have stuff about as thick as my pinky finger. So what's going to go over here? Stuff about the thickness of my thumb. So let's get that next. It's about the size of my thumb. Sometimes if I can't break it with my hand, I'll find a rock or a post and break it like that. So here we have stuff about the size of my thumb. What's next? Stuff right here about the size of my wrist. So I already have two pieces, again, close to the size of my wrist, right here, but we don't really have enough, so I'm gonna go get some more and we'll come back and get this pile a little bit bigger. Here's a good one. There's another good one up there. So with this bigger stuff, you can't really break it with your hands. So what I like to do is put it on something where I can step on it and break it. Now I have a nice piece. We could probably break that again. Have two nice pieces about the size of my wrist. Let's go ahead and make a couple more. It's real easy to do this. That one's a little tough, so I won't hurt myself and just get something a little bit smaller. Now I have everything I need to build my fire.